Today's video, I want to show you guys a little tip that I think is pretty important and I feel is pretty neglected in the fly fishing community, and that is rod maintenance. What do we do when we get done fishing? This is pretty much the end of the trout season in Oklahoma for me, so the stalker trout that they put in, they don't put them in anymore. They're going to start dying off, and I've called it in. This is the end of the season for me. I'm going to start fishing for bass, for smallmouth bass, and a lot of coastal fishing now. So my rod that I use for feeder fish, I'm going to clean up and put away, and I'm going to show you guys how I do it. It's a very simple process. You're going to need a bowl with some lukewarm water and a touch of Dawn dish soap. Now I use an antibacterial Dawn dish soap just in case there's some kind of contaminant that gets onto my rod. I don't want to transfer it back and forth to different creeks, so I use that. And I use Dawn brand dish soap because Dawn has a neutral pH, so it's not going to affect the finishes or surfaces or cause any kind of issue. So I have less than a spoonful of Dawn dish soap into probably a quart of water here, and I use warm water. I don't use real hot water. I've got this rag, which is basically just a wash rag. This wash rag is all I use. It's a rag that I carry. It's got a little hook on it, and I hang it when I go fishing to dry my hands. And it is a rag, and my wife just sewed this stuff on the back. So basically, I'm going to go through my rod, and I want to look at it and inspect it. Make sure that all of my rod guides are in good shape, that I don't have any breakage, that I don't have any cracks, that I don't have anything like that. I want to make sure that my ferrule where they go in together has not got any cracks or any damage there. And everything looks good here. Now you see I'm holding this rod flat. I have a ceiling fan in this room, and anytime I'm working with my rods, I want to make sure that I'm not jamming it in the ceiling fan. So as a precautionary deal before you get started, always make sure your ceiling fans are off. I know because I have whacked a rod and lost a tip in the ceiling fan. Pretty embarrassing thing. So basically you're going to take your rag. It's going to be damp, wrung out, and I'm going to just run it up and down my rod. I'm going to go through them rod guides. I'm going to make sure I've got them nice and scrubbed up. I'm going to go up and down, fairly aggressive. Then I'm going to go back and forth in between my rod guides. And that's all I need to do on the cleaning of the top end. On the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm looking, making sure everything is okay, and everything appears to be okay. So I'm going to go up and down. Now you want to make sure you get that end really clean so there's no dust, no grime, anything like that, because that'll scratch the inside of the top portion of your rod. And when you do that, it'll make it where it doesn't want to go together, or it could tear it up and you have issues. Now when I get to the cork, I'm just going to wipe my cork down nice and smooth. When I get to my reel seat, I want to move my screws back and forth to where I'm getting all of them threads nice and clean. So now that is all I need to do on the scrubbing portion. Now that rod was not real dirty looking, and you can see all the grime that is in there. I mean, they get nasty, so you want to make sure that you have them clean. So now, next thing I do is I'm going to take a paper towel. I've got a cup of water over here. I'm going to get just a little bit of water, not a lot, just barely make it damp. And I'm going to go and pretty much just wipe it down and rinse it off the best that I can. Same thing on this side. And guys, this is all I do on my saltwater rods, and it works. Now I do it every day. If I go fishing in the saltwater, I do this every evening. And it doesn't take a bunch of fancy stuff. I mean, some Dawn dish soap. Now, the next thing I do is I get a can of WD-40. And where my rod ferrules are is where I want to make sure that my rods are good. Instead of scrubbing or sticking something in there, I always take just a dab of WD-40. I mean, just a dab, barely a squirt, and I spray that in, and then I'm going to catch whatever comes out. That is going to clean that and kind of lubricate it. And the good thing about WD-40 is WD-40 is a water displacement oil. It doesn't stay there. It kind of will evaporate off, but any water or moisture that's in there is going to push it out. So now I have that, and I've caught some on my rag. I'm going to put just a little bit, and I'm going to go over every rod guide. And if there's any moisture, any kind of stuff causing problems, that is going to kind of help push the water out. If there's chips on the finish, it'll help prevent the rust. And I go through every single one of them. And when I get down to my reel seat, I want to take that WD-40 and I want to run it through them threads. Now, this is not a lot of WD-40. It's very little. I mean, that rag, you can barely feel it. And I'm going to run them back and forth until that is completely lubed up and good. And guys, that is all there is to it. These things are expensive. You know, rods can cost from, you know, $100 to several hundred to the thousands. We don't need to tear them up. That is all I do to my rods. Now I'm going to let that rod sit there for the afternoon and dry out, and then I'll put it back in its tube and it'll be ready for next year. That's all there is to it. A little Dawn dish soap, a little WD-40, and a little bit of elbow grease, and you can make that thing work like new. So I hope this helps, and I hope this will keep your guys' gear and stuff. I'll see you in the next video.